The market was filled with shadows, smoke, and noise. Strange alien voices echoed through the wide hall, mixed with the sound of chains and heavy boots. Torches burned on tall iron poles, making the air thick and hot. Every corner of the market smelled of fear. This was not a normal market. It was a place where lives were sold. Among the cages stood a girl. Her skin was pale silver, her eyes glowing faint blue in the dark. She was young, but her body showed the marks of whips and chains. An alien slave girl. She stood with her head down, hiding the tears in her eyes. She knew what was coming. She had seen others dragged away screaming, never to return. The guards pulled her forward, forcing her onto a wooden platform. The crowd gathered, eyes hungry, voices sharp. Some aliens whispered about her beauty. Others laughed about how weak she looked. She heard one say, "She will not last long." Another said, "Perfect for pain games." Her heart raced. She already knew her future: torture, cruelty, endless suffering. For her, death would have been a kinder choice. But she was not given that choice. She was property. The auction master, a fat alien with 4 eyes, raised his voice. "Look here. A rare prize, young, strong, untouched spirit. Who will take her?" The crowd roared. Bids started. Numbers climbed higher and higher. The girl shook, but she did not cry. Tears would only make them laugh more. She bit her lip and stood still, even as fear burned in her chest. Then she noticed him. From the back of the hall, a man stepped forward. He was different from the rest. Not an alien, but a human. His hair was dark, with streaks of gray. His face was marked with years of struggle, his eyes calm but unreadable. He was not young, not strong like a warrior, but there was something solid in the way he walked. The girl felt a chill. Humans were known to be cruel masters. Some said they were worse than the alien lords, she thought. If he takes me, I will suffer more than I can imagine. The auction master smiled wide. Ah, a human enters the bid. Surely he knows the value of this one. The crowd went silent for a moment. Everyone turned to see him. The man spoke only once. His voice was low, steady. "I'll pay." The number he offered was final, higher than all others. The crowd gasped. Some cursed. Others laughed. But no one dared to outbid him. The hammer fell. "Sold," shouted the auction master. To the human buyer, chains rattled as guards pushed the girl toward him. Her heart sank deeper with every step. She wanted to scream, to run, but her body was weak. She had no power, no choice. When she stood before him, she dared to raise her eyes, just once. He looked at her, not with hunger, not with cruelty, but with something she could not understand. His gaze was heavy, calm, and almost sad. The guards shoved her forward, placing the chain into his hand. "Here is your property," one sneered. The man nodded, but said nothing. He turned, pulling the chain gently, not harshly. She followed, her steps trembling as they walked. Through the crowd, whispers followed them. Why did he pay so much? He will break her slowly. Humans love pain games. Every word cut her deeper. Her fear grew heavier. Her mind screamed, "He bought me for torture. He will enjoy my pain." The hall's door opened. Cold night air touched her skin. Stars glowed above, but for her, they gave no hope. She felt the chain in his hand and knew it was the chain of her fate. The human man led her toward his ship, parked on the dusty ground outside the market. It was old, scratched by years of travel. Not a warship, not a trader's ship, just a lonely, tired vessel. He pressed a button, the ramp lowered, and he guided her inside. The metal floor felt cold under her bare feet. The ship smelled of oil and old air, not of blood. She looked around, searching for cages, for weapons, for torture tools. But she saw none. Only worn seats, boxes of supplies, and broken machines, waiting to be fixed. Still, her heart did not calm. Fear whispered, "This is only the beginning." He will show his true face soon. The man released the chain from his hand, but did not remove it from her wrists. He sat down in the pilot's chair and began pressing buttons. The engines hummed, shaking the floor. He did not speak to her, did not strike her. He only prepared the ship for takeoff. The girl stood frozen. Should she try to escape? Should. She begged for mercy. Her eyes burned, but no tears came. She had learned long ago that begging never saved anyone. The ship lifted into the sky. The market grew smaller below them until it was gone. Now it was only her and him. Alone in the endless, dark of space, she closed her eyes. Her thoughts echoed like a scream in her mind. I am his slave now. He bought me for torture. My life is over. And yet, a small part of her wondered, why did he look at me with sad eyes? The question burned inside her, but she pushed it away. For her hope was dangerous. Hope could kill faster than pain. So she waited, silent, afraid. Expecting the worst, the man piloted the ship without a word. His face showed nothing. But in his eyes, hidden deep, was a secret she could not yet see. The silent journey, the engines of the old ship growled like a tired beast as it cut through the black sea of space. Stars stretched long and thin outside. The glass window, but inside the cabin, silence filled every corner. Only the soft hum of the machine kept them company. The girl sat in the shadow, chained but no longer pulled. The man did not speak. He did not even glance at her. His hands moved across the controls with slow care, as if he had done this 1,000 times before. She hugged her knees and waited. Her breath came fast at first, then slower, but her heart still beat with fear. Every sound, the click of a button, the low hiss of the vents, made her flinch. She expected pain at any moment. She expected his voice to order her, or his hand to strike. But none of it came. Time passed like heavy stones. She tried to count minutes, but fear made her lose track. At last, she whispered to herself, almost too soft to hear, "Why is he quiet?" He gave no answer. Perhaps he had not heard, or perhaps he did not care. After some hours, the ship trembled as it crossed into dark space lanes. The man pressed a switch, and food packs slid from a small machine on the side of the cabin. He placed one near her, along with a small metal cup filled with water. The girl froze. She looked at the food, then at him. Surely this was a trick. Kindness was only another shape of cruelty. Many slavers fed their victims before breaking them to keep them strong enough for torture. But hunger twisted inside her. Her stomach cried louder than her fear. Slowly she reached out, her hands shaking. She expected him to pull it away too. Laugh, to strike her. He did nothing. She took a small bite. The taste was plain, but real, and she ate fast, like a starved animal. Water spilled down her chin as she drank, but she did not care. She was alive for another day. That was enough. The man's eyes flicked to her once, then back to the controls. No words, no expression, just silence. The girl sat back, her mind twisting. Why feed me? Why not hurt me already? Suspicion burned in her. Maybe he wanted her to trust him, so the pain would feel worse later. Maybe he was playing a game. She clenched her fists, angry at herself. Don't believe him. Don't. Hope. Hours stretched into night. The ship's lights dimmed. The man leaned back in his chair, but did not sleep. He only watched the stars pass by, his face hard, unreadable. The girl lay on the floor, her body sore from chains. She did not sleep either. Her eyes stayed open in the dark, watching him, waiting for the moment he would show his true self. But the moment never came. When her eyes grew heavy at last, she dreamed. The dreams were cruel shadows chasing her, fire, voices laughing. She woke with a start, her chest tight, sweat on her skin. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then she saw him, still sitting there, still silent. In the dim light, she studied his face. Not handsome, not cruel, just tired. His eyes were heavy, like he carried a weight no one else could see. She whispered, without thinking, "Who are you?" The words escaped before she could stop them. She bit her lip in fear. But he did not answer. His eyes stayed on the stars. Perhaps he had heard. Perhaps he chose silence. That silence was worse than any strike. It filled the ship like a ghost. Pressing down on her chest, the next day if day even existed in the endless dark, he rose and moved through the ship. He checked the engines, fixed a broken panel, replaced a wire. She watched, careful, studying him. His hands were rough, scarred, not the hands of a rich master. He worked like someone who had built and broken many things. She thought, why would such a man spend so much money on me? He caught her watching once. Their eyes met. For a heartbeat, she saw something pity, maybe sorrow before he turned away. Her heart skipped. She hated that it did. She told herself it was nothing. She told herself he was only pretending. But the question burned deeper. If he wanted to torture me, why wait so long? By the third night, the silence felt heavier than chains. She almost wished he would speak, even if it was to hurt her. At least then she would know. But still, he said nothing. Still, he only gave her food, gave her water, and left her alone. In that silence, her fear twisted into confusion. Confusion twisted into suspicion, and suspicion twisted into something more dangerous than Mubi Molasses. Then my only lipstick, Ruby Kiss, Ruby Kiss. Only Ruby Kiss has the luxurious, castor debordged texture that leave massive molastate. AKFF, lead long-lasting. A, my F, my casseed, live I, light F, my calf. May K, may sif. I play K with lead zaid. May said, I be made. Go on. A sit, but sick. Fear, hope, she crushed the thought at once. No, don't be foolish. Hope is a trap. And yet, when she closed her eyes again, she remembered not the whips, not the pain, not the laughter of the slavers. She remembered his eyes tired, heavy, but not cruel. For the first time in years, her dreams were quiet. The first night the ship drifted through the endless black sky, carrying its two passengers deeper into silence. The hum of the engines was steady, like the heartbeat of some great sleeping creature. But inside the cabin, tension sat heavy, as if the air itself held its breath. The girl sat in the corner, her wrists still bound, her eyes never leaving the man. She had survived the auction, she had survived the journey, but now came the first night. The night when masters often showed their true face. Her body ached with fear. She had seen this story before. The kindness, the waiting, the silent sit was all a mask. Sooner or later, the pain would begin. The man moved about the ship. He checked switches, shut down lights, closed the steel doors one by one. Each sound, the hiss of a panel, the thud of a lock, made her shiver. It was as if he was building a cage, one she could never escape. Finally, he set the ship into sleep mode. Lights dimmed until only a faint glow painted the walls. The man did not look at her. He did not tie her down. He simply lowered himself onto the hard floor beside the pilot's chair, his back against the wall. The girl blinked. No chains, no whip. no command. Her heart raced faster. She waited for him to rise suddenly, to come toward her. But he did not move. Minutes passed. Then, hours. He sat still, his eyes half closed, as if sleep tugged at him but never fully took him. His chest rose and fell slowly. She did not understand. He was not guarding her with violence. He was not keeping her weak with hunger. He was simply there. Suspicion tore at her mind. Why leave me unchained? Why not control me like the others did? Does he think I cannot escape? Or does he want me to try so he can punish me? Her eyes darted to the small side door, the ramp that led outside. If she could reach it, maybe she could run. But where would she go? Space stretched endless beyond the walls. No stars offered safety. There was no world below her feet, only the black sea. Escape was impossible. She hugged her knees tighter, whispering in her mind, "Wait, be ready. He will show his cruelty soon." But as hours slipped away, no cruelty came. The cabin was so quiet she could hear his breathing. Slow, steady, almost peaceful. She looked at his hands resting on his knees, scarred, rough, but not holding a weapon. Her stomach twisted. She hated the question forming inside her. What if he really does not plan to hurt me? She shook her head hard, angry at herself. No, don't trust, don't hope. Hope is poison, but her eyes kept drifting back to him. She studied the lines of his face, not sharp with cruelty, not twisted with joy of pain. Instead, there was weariness. Like he had carried too much for too long, a thought slipped into her mind. Soft but dangerous. He looks lonely. The girl bit her lip. Why should I care if he is lonely? He is still my master. He bought me. I am his slave. Her chest ached as she lay down on the cold floor, curling close to the wall. She told herself she would not sleep. She would stay awake, ready for anything. But the silence was heavy, the ship warm and her body weak. Slowly, her eyes closed. Dreams came again. Not the usual ones of fire and screams. This time, she dreamed of chains falling away, of stars opening like doors. She dreamed of walking free. When she woke, the light of the ship had brightened. Her body stiff, her wrists sore, but her heart beating strangely calm. The man was already awake. He sat by the pilot's chair, repairing a small broken device with patient hands. He had not moved her. He had not touched her. She stared at him in secret. He was focused, careful, as if fixing this broken thing mattered more than anything else. In the world, for the first time, a thought whispered, "He is not like the others." The thought scared her more than chains. Because if it was true, it meant everything she believed about masters, about humans, about life itself could be wrong. She shook her head again, angry. She whispered under her breath, "He is playing a game. He wants me to think he is kind. That is how he will break me." But when he looked up and met her eyes for 1 second, there was no game in his gaze. Only something she had never seen before. Regret. It made her chest tighten. She looked away at once, too afraid of what she might feel if she kept staring. That night ended with no chains, no screams, no pain. Only silence, but for the girl, that silence was more terrifying than torture. Because in that silence, a dangerous seed had been planted. Not trust. Not yet. But doubt. Doubt in her fear. Doubt in her belief that all humans were monsters. And doubt was the first crack in her prison. The truth revealed the days of travel passed in silence, broken only by the hum of the engines and the clatter of the man's tools as he repaired old parts of his ship. The girl stayed in her corner, still chained, still afraid. Yet her fear had begun to twist into something more complicated. He had not touched her. He had not shouted at her. He had not treated her like property, and that was worse. because she no longer understood him. One cycle. As the ship floated through a calm sector of stars, she finally spoke. Her voice was sharp, forced out by anger that hid her fear. "Why don't you hurt me?" The man did not answer at first. His hands kept working on a cracked metal panel, his brow furrowed in thought. She raised her voice. "Why buy me, if not for torture? That is why humans buy us. That is what you all do." Her words cut through the silence like a blade. For the first time, he looked at her fully. His eyes were not cruel, not mocking. They were steady, calm but heavy, as though carrying shadows she could not see. "I did not buy you to hurt you," he said. His voice was low, worn, but clear. "I bought you to save you." The girl froze. The words struck her like a blow. She wanted to laugh, to scream. Save her. No master saved slaves. No one spent money for freedom. "You lie," she spat. Chains rattled as she stood. "You say this to make me obey. But I know the truth. You will break me." "You will, I will not," he interrupted. His tone did not rise. It did not need to. The weight in his voice was enough. For a long moment, the ship was silent again. Then, slowly, he lifted his sleeve. Scars covered his arm. Long, deep marks that no accident could explain. Wounds from chains, from whips, from war. The girl's breath caught. She knew those scars. She had seen them before on other slaves. On herself. "You," she whispered. "You were—" "Yes," he said simply. "Once, I was a slave too." Knees felt weak, and she sank to the floor. The world around her seemed to shift. This man, this human, was not like the others. He spoke again. His voice quieter now, almost a whisper. "I know what they do to you. I know the fear, the hunger, the chains. I know what it means to believe there is no escape. That life is only pain until it ends." His words pierced her, each one hitting deep inside her chest. "But you are free now," he continued. "I bought you because no one else would. If I had left you there, they would have broken you. I could not let that happen." She shook her head. It was too much, too strange. Freedom was a word she had not allowed herself to think of in years. It was dangerous. It gave hope, and hope killed. You expect me to believe this?" she said, her voice trembling. "You expect me to believe a human would pay for freedom, not pain?" He looked at her with eyes that seemed far away, lost in memories. "I expect nothing. Believe me or not. But I will not harm you. You can. Hate me if you want. That is your right, but you are safe here." Her chest tightened. Safe. Another dangerous word. A word she had never known. She wanted to scream again, to tell him he lied. Yet something in his eyes, in those scars, in the calm of his voice, something told her he was speaking the truth. Confusion filled her heart. She hated it. Fear was simple. Pain was simple. But this strange kindness, this quiet sadness, tore her apart inside. The man stood and walked to the pilot's chair. "Rest. Eat. You will need your strength." She stared at him, her mind racing. "Why? Why do you care?" He paused, his back to her. When he answered, his voice was softer than ever. "Because no one cared for me when I needed it. And I swore, if I ever had the chance, I would not let another suffer the way I did." The cabin fell into silence once more. But it was not the heavy silence of fear. It was a silence full of questions, of doubts, of dangerous new thoughts. The girl pulled her knees close and pressed her forehead against them. Her mind screamed that he was lying. But her heart whispered something else. Maybe, just maybe, he was telling the truth. That night, when she closed her eyes, she did not dream of whips or cages. She dreamed of stars opening like doors and a voice whispering, "You are free." She woke with tears on her cheeks, not from pain, but from something far stranger: hope. The escape from Hunters the girl had begun to believe his words. Not fully, not yet, but something had changed inside her. His silence was no longer a mask of cruelty. His scars were not lies. And his voice, steady and calm, still echoed in her. "Mind, I bought you to save you." But peace never lasted long in the galaxy. On the third cycle, alarms rang across the ship. Red lights flashed, and the hum of the engines turned sharp and restless. The man's eyes narrowed as he read the screens. His jaw tightened, and for the first time, she saw fear in him. "What is it?" she whispered, her voice small. "They've found us," he said. Her blood turned cold. "Who?" "Hunters," he replied. "The slavers don't give up their property so easily. They want you back." Her chest tightened with panic. She had known it was too good to be true. Freedom was always a lie. She imagined being dragged back, beaten for daring to escape. The ship shook as a blast hit the side. Outside, through the window, glowing streaks of light cut through space. A hunter ship followed close, sleek and deadly. The man moved fast, his hands racing across controls. The old vessel groaned as it turned sharply, dodging another shot. Sparks flew from the ceiling. The girl screamed and grabbed the wall to keep from falling. "Sit down," he shouted. It was the first time his voice carried command, not calm. She stumbled into a seat, clutching the straps. The ship shuddered. Again, fear wrapped around her throat like chains. The man pressed buttons, pulling the ship into a dangerous spin. The stars outside twisted into streaks of white. Another blast grazed their side, shaking the cabin. Warnings flashed red across the screens. The girl's heart pounded so loud she could barely hear. "They'll catch us," she said, her voice breaking. "Not if I can help it," he answered, eyes locked on the stars. The hunter ship drew closer, its sharp wings spreading like claws. The girl could almost feel the laughter of the slavers inside. They were ready to drag her back into chains. Her breath came fast, panic rising. She wanted to hide, to vanish. But then she saw him steady, calm, fighting not for himself, but for her. Something snapped inside her. She could not sit and wait. Not again. She unbuckled and stumbled toward the back of the ship. He turned his head. "What are you doing?" "Helping," she shouted. "There's nothing you can," but she was already moving. Searching through crates of spare parts and tools, the hunters fired again. The ship shook, but she found what she needed: flare launchers. Old, but still working. She ran back to the cockpit, clutching the device. "Open the hatch." He glanced at her, eyes wide with surprise. But he obeyed, hitting the switch. A side panel slid open, exposing the cold darkness of space. The girl aimed the launcher and fired. Bright flares shot out, glowing like small suns. The hunter ship swerved, confused for a moment. "Good?" the man shouted, turning the ship sharply. Again, she loaded another flare and fired. This time, the hunters slowed, blinded by the sudden light. The man used the moment, pulling their ship into a dive toward a nearby asteroid field. The vessel shook violently as it slipped between massive spinning rocks. The girl screamed, but held on. The hunter ship followed, but its sleek body was not built for the chaos of the field. It struggled to keep up. The man guided their ship with skill, weaving through gaps so small the girl thought they would be crushed. Each move was precise, dangerous, but never careless. Another blast fired from behind, missing them by a breath. A rock spun past, slamming into the hunter ship's wing. Sparks exploded in the dark. "They're damaged," she cried. "Not enough." He muttered, "Hold on," He pressed the engines to their limit. The old ship screamed in protest, but it pushed harder. Faster. At last, the asteroid field opened, revealing empty space. Behind them, the hunter ship slowed, its engines failing, sparks trailing behind. Silence returned. The alarms dimmed. Only the steady hum of the old ship remained. The girl collapsed to the floor, her chest heaving. She could not believe it. They were alive. He leaned back in the chair, sweat on his brow. For the first time, he let out a long, tired laugh. We did it. The girl stared at him, shocked. We? He looked at her and nodded. Yes, we. You bought us time with those flares. Without you, we would be dead. Her eyes burned. No one had ever said such words to her before. No one had ever treated her as part of a fight, part of a team. She was always property. It's always less. But now, she was something else. She turned away quickly, afraid of the warmth rising inside her. I only did it because I don't want to go back, she muttered. He smiled faintly. Whatever the reason, you saved us. The silence that followed was no longer heavy with fear. It carried something new, trust, fragile and small, but alive. The girl closed her eyes and whispered to herself, maybe he truly means to save me. Maybe he really does. But deep inside, another voice warned her. Nothing lasts forever. The galaxy always takes back what it gives, and somewhere out in the darkness, the hunters would be waiting again. The choice of the ship floated in quiet space, far from the hunters, far from the market. For the first time, there was no alarm, no fire, no threat in sight. Only silence, but inside the girl's chest, there was no peace. Her heart battled with itself. One side screamed that freedom was a lie. The other whispered that maybe, just maybe, this man spoke truth. She watched him from her corner. He sat in the pilot's chair, his head bowed, his shoulders heavy. He looked older now, older than when she first saw him at the auction. Like the weight of saving her had carved new lines into his face. At last, he turned. His voice was soft, but steady. We are close to a safe world, he said. A place where you can live free. No hunters, no chains. You will not need me anymore. The word struck her harder than any whip ever had. Free, the word echoed in her mind, strange and dangerous. She almost laughed, almost cried. What did it mean to be free? She had never been free. She did not even know how. You would just leave me there, she asked, her voice small. He nodded. Yes, you will have your life. No master, no chains, no chains, no debt to me. You owe me nothing. Her hands shook. But why? Because freedom is the only thing worth saving for, he answered. His voice carried no pride, no expectation of thanks. Only truth. The girl lowered her eyes. Freedom. It sounded beautiful. But it also sounded terrifying. What if he was lying? What if this was another trick, another game? What if he left her on that world, and hunters came again? What if she could not survive alone? For the first time, chains felt safer than freedom. At least chains were familiar. At least she knew their weight. Her voice cracked. I don't know how to be free. He studied her for a long moment. Then he spoke quietly. Neither did I at first. When I escaped, I was lost. I did not know how to eat without orders. I did not know how to sleep without fear. But with time, I learned. He paused, his eyes soft. And you will too. The girl pressed her forehead to her knees. Her heart pounded. Part of her wanted to run into freedom. Part of her wanted to stay where she was. And both felt like prisons. She whispered, almost to herself, if I leave, I lose the only person who ever cared. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Her eyes widened, but it was too late. He looked at her, and for the first time, his expression broke. His eyes shone with something she could not name. Sadness, maybe. Or something deeper. "You don't need me," he said softly. "You only need yourself. But if you choose to walk away, I will not stop you." That is freedom. The ship beeped as they neared orbit. A small green planet spun below, wrapped in clouds and forests. Life glowed across its surface. Safe, peaceful. The girl stood slowly, her legs trembling. She walked to the window and stared at the world. It was beautiful. It was everything she had dreamed of, and everything she feared. She turned back to him. He waited, silent, his face calm but unreadable. Her chest ached. One choice lay before her: walk into freedom or stay in chains of her own making. The silence grew heavy. She could feel the weight of the galaxy pressing down. Finally, she spoke. Her voice shook, but her words were clear. "You gave me freedom, but I cannot walk into it alone. Not yet. I choose to stay with you." The words surprised even her. They fell from her mouth before her mind had finished thinking. The man's eyes widened slightly. Then, for the first time since she had met him, he smiled. A small smile, tired but real. "Then stay," he said simply. "Not as a slave, not as property. Stay because you choose to." Her chest loosened, like chains had fallen away inside. For the first time, she felt a strange warmth, not fear, not anger. Something else, hope. She turned back to the window, looking at the planet below. A world of freedom, waiting. But she no longer needed it to prove she was free. Her freedom had begun here. On this old ship, with this strange man who carried scars. And sadness, but also something greater, compassion. The engines hummed as the ship sailed past the planet, into the stars once more. The girl whispered to herself, "I was born in chains, but now I choose my path." And for the first time, the path was not written by fear. The old ship drifted through the quiet sea of stars. The alarms were gone. The hunters were far behind. For the first time, the girl felt the silence was not heavy, was gentle. She sat by the window, her wrists finally free of chains. She touched the marks they had left, running her fingers across the scars. They no longer burned. They no longer defined her. The man worked nearby, fixing another broken panel. His movements were slow, steady, patient, like always. But something had changed between them. She no longer saw him as a shadow hiding cruelty. She saw him as what he truly was: scarred, weary, but human. Her voice broke the silence. "Why do you smile so little?" He looked up, surprised. A small laugh escaped his lips, rough but real. "'Cause I forgot how." The girl tilted her head. "Then remember." For a moment, their eyes met. And for the first time, his face softened. A faint smile touched his lips, not the smile of a master, of someone hiding secrets, but the smile of a man who had finally found something worth holding on to. The girl's chest warmed. A strange and unfamiliar feeling swirled inside her safety. Trust, something close to belonging. She had never known them before, but even as the silence grew calm, doubt whispered at the edge of her thoughts. "The hunters," she murmured. "They will come again." "Yes," he said. His voice carried no fear. "They will not stop easily. Okay, but neither will I." She studied him, her heart pounding. He had risked his life for her. He had fought when he could have walked away. He had given her freedom, and yet she had chosen him instead. That choice burned bright inside her. She stood and walked toward him, her bare feet soft against the cold floor. For a moment, she hesitated. Then, Slowly, she placed her hand over his scarred one. He froze, looking down at her small hand resting on his. "You said I was free," she whispered. "And I am. But freedom does not mean I must walk alone. I choose to stay, not because I must, because I want to." His eyes softened, and for a moment, words failed him. At last, he nodded. "Then you are not my slave. You are my ally." The word struck her deeper than any chain had ever done. Ally, equal. Her eyes stung. And she quickly looked away so he would not see the tears. But he did. And he said nothing, only letting the silence speak. The ship continued its journey. Days turned into nights, nights into days. But no longer did she count time in fear. She learned the small tasks of the ship: how to check controls, how to patch wires, how to prepare meals. He taught her patiently, never raising his voice, never treating her as less, and in turn, she brought laughter back into the cabin. Small. At first, then stronger. She asked questions, teased him when he grew too serious, filled the silence with a warmth he had forgotten existed. They were no longer master and slave. No longer strangers bound by chains and fear. They were something new. One evening, as they drifted past a cluster of glowing stars, she asked, "Where will we go now?" He leaned back, his eyes on the endless horizon. "Anywhere the stars will take us. There are always people who need help. Always those still in chains. If I can save one more, I will." Her heart stirred. She remembered the cage, the auction, the hunters. She remembered the hopeless faces of the others still left behind. She tightened her fists. "Then I will help you. We will save them together." He turned to her, and this time his smile was full, not faint. Together, then, the stars stretched before them, infinite and wild. The ship, old and scarred, carried two souls who were no longer broken. The girl sat beside him. No chains, no fear, only choice. She whispered to herself, "I was born in darkness. I lived in chains. But I found light in the unlikeliest place. A man who should have been my master, but chose to be my savior. And now I choose to walk beside him." The engines roared softly, carrying them forward, not as owner and property, not as prisoner and guard, but as allies, as family too against the galaxy. And somewhere deep inside, the girl knew this was not the end of her story. It was only the beginning.